because it's not necessarily the best attorney who gets the work. It's the best known attorney that gets the work. So one of the initiatives I think we're really going to push forward this year is, we've gone wide with our marketing, but I want to go deep with it now.
Sharp strategies, sweet success.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sharp Strategies, Sweet Success. This is your host, Tiffany Swedensky, and today I am here with Brad Scott. I started working with Brad and Scott Vicknair Law / Louisiana succession attorney about, I guess, almost 3 years ago now, which is kind of crazy.
Has it been that long already?
I think so, actually. And so been working with them as a fractional CMO for a long time. I've got to see them grow quite a lot over the last 3 years, which I'm really happy about. And it's a team effort because everyone in the firm has been kind of working to that same goal. And I meet with Brad every week, and he's always kind of the cool-headed one in the conversation sometimes, which I appreciate. He has a very rich perspective. He's been practicing law for a long time. And I generally love working with him and his
Nice
team.
way of saying I'm the old guy in the office. I appreciate that.
I thought I was very tactful. I tried to walk around that. But I'll turn it over to Brad and let him kind of finish up the introduction.
Well, we have a firm in New Orleans, Louisiana. We got two main offices. We primarily do personal injury work in the South Shore office in New Orleans, and my thing is probate work. I've been doing probate work for over 2 decades. Probably one of the larger probate practices in the state, and we handle a ton of it. And our success has been mostly driven by marketing. So we love what we do. We like helping people, and we have some really good people and a good culture of people that work for us. So yes, that's where we're at. If anybody needs us down in New Orleans, you know where to find us.
And it's always really nice being like one of the few in the marketplace too, because there are a lot of firms that handle, I think, these types of cases, but not a lot of firms that are dedicated to them.
Yeah, we always say, do you want an attorney who does successions or do you want a succession attorney? And we're very unique in the size of my practice group and the number of people we have that just exclusively do succession and estate work. Routinely, we'll have one of our attorneys go to court, and the opposing attorney will ask them, "All you do is successions?" And they're like, "Yeah, me and like 14 other people." So people are always surprised that we have that much succession work. So it goes to niching down and finding what you want to do. And when you start niching and attracting those things, you'd be amazed how much work you get in just that practice area. So I've always been a fan of doing one area and being really good at it.
Yeah.
We think we're good at it. We hope we are.
Well, and I guess I never asked this, and I'm sorry, this isn't going to be a question I told you I'd ask. But what got you started with succession and probate? How did you end up niching down here?
Well, interestingly, as a baby lawyer, I was working for another firm. I did a little bit of everything. I did commercial litigation, I did personal injury litigation, a lot of banking type stuff, corporate representation, did a little bit of everything. At one point, I decided I was going to break off of that firm, open my own shop, and do things. And I literally sat down one day, and it was like an Avo or something, one of those lawyer listings where you have all the different areas of law, from aerospace to bankruptcy to zoo law, whatever the last one was. It was like 30 things as far as practice areas. And I literally went through each and every practice area, and I did this mental exercise that if this was the only practice area I could practice, how would I market? What would my clients be? What would my practice look like? Overall market and economy, how does that factor into it? And I kind of did an analysis of every single practice area like that. And then I got to probate in estates, and I started thinking and looking at it. We have this baby boom generation of, people that are aging, and looking through history, they've changed almost every industry as they've gone through it, as far as when they've gotten to that age group. And I started seeing that, there's a lot of opportunity as far as market growth in that area. It was also something I had done a lot of work in before as far as probate and estate work. And I come from a very small town outside of New Orleans. I grew up in a rural area where family was always important to me. So it was always natural to me to want to help people. So it kind of just checked a lot of different boxes. And I saw a great business opportunity as far as market segment to go into. And we just went all in on it at that point. So that's kind of where the idea came from. That's how I settled in on probate and estate work.
And it's nice from a marketing perspective because, personal injury is literally an audience of everyone.
Yep.
And you can decide to serve one demographic more than the other, but, everyone gets into an accident. But it is a very specific demographic that starts to deal with estate and succession issues. And so, and a lot of the platforms like Facebook well, Facebook in particular, make it easy for us to drill down on those demographics. So it's everything is just that much easier.
And we don't have the competition in the probate side that we do in the personal injury side. Seems like every lawyer out there and their brother are personal injury attorneys are handling personal injury and looking for those cases. I fortunately don't have a lot of competition. People doing my line of work aren't out there screaming for clients. They may want them, but we're kind of a voice of one, which makes our job a little easier from the marketing side sometimes.
Yeah. So one of the questions that I ask you, and this comes up in almost every meeting that we have, but you're using AI and ChatGPT in a lot of different ways in the law firm. And if you want to talk a little bit about your experience there, like where you've used it and it worked really well, where you've used it and maybe it didn't, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we've been using some version of AI for at least a couple of years now. Before everybody was really talking about it, we used things like Jasper and God, there was another one for a period of time that we were using for content generation, even before it was the it thing to be doing. So we've used it for a while. I'm very kind of tech sided. Like I'm very interested in things that can make our job easier, make things quicker for us. And I've been working on it for like the last year or two, and they laugh at me in the office. I'm creating what's called Bradbot. I have literally been using Chat GPT for all my brainstorming operations. I run everything through it, from financial information, business strategy decisions, marketing information. We generate all kinds of lead magnets and stuff like that through it. So it's amazing how much Chat GPT has learned about me and my way of thinking, and also about my practice. So one of my favorite applications, which we've built out over the last year, is one of the big problems in a law firm is, your intake, and listening to intake and coaching your intake people. That's a ton of phone call time every week that you have to go through. Everybody says, listen to your intake calls because you'll be very surprised what you hear, which I stress everybody to do. But where do you find the time to do that? So we've literally used AI now where we can take audio recordings from our intake calls. They're run through transcription, they get transcribed, and they're fed through an AI bot that we've created that we've kind of trained on intake. We've trained it on probate law. So we're able to produce reports now. AI automatically does this for us of these intake calls. It screens the calls as far as it grades the calls on how well the intake person did. It makes suggestions on what they could have done better on the call. And it also when it grades them out, it's allowing us to quickly assess which calls need to be reviewed manually by somebody as opposed to reviewing everything. So it's allowing us to really teach and coach up our intake staff so they can do a much better job on the phone with the clients when they do call in. So that's one of my favorite uses as far as an efficiency use. Obviously, I use it for everything as far as content development, things like that. One of the big projects we just started on recently is I'm trying to build up my LinkedIn profile. Well, first place I turned was to ChatGPT, and particular people who are doing really well in that space. What do? You copy a lot of their posts, feed it through, and ask it what's the formula that they're using. And of course, it came up with those things, and we're using for content development. But yeah, anything that we can automate and the production of content, that's one of the biggest uses of AI that I really like using. We use it for budgeting somewhat, but it's kind of hit or miss with that as far as feeding it financial information. And then you kind of have those privacy concerns. We don't use it as much in the practice management side of things, as far as we don't have like medical records and things like that to analyze. We don't really use it for drafting of documents yet. We're kind of starting to explore that. But yes, every single seminar or conference I go to, there's always an AI talk. I'm taking notes as we're having those conversations. I'm always finding a new use for it almost every single day. But it's getting scary how much it knows. And now with the advent of all the video technology that AI can generate the videos, I joke with my daughters all the time that after I'm dead, I'll still be here. They're going to ask me questions through Chat GPT, and it'll be my video playing for them. It'll be very weird for them, but I'll still be here.
I mean, it'll be very weird, but imagine like after a couple generations, how cool that would be to be able to recall like an AI generated image of your grandfather or great grandfather. It'd be pretty wild.
Yeah, let me ask great grandpa what he thinks about this. I don't know where this will end up, and it's neat. It's a tool though, and I heard a quote the other day that somebody said that AI is not going to replace your job, but somebody who knows how to use AI will replace your job. So I'm always focused, and surprisingly, I have two kids in college right now, and a lot of these colleges are pushing back against the use of AI. They're not really teaching them this, and like I think of that's like not teaching a kid how to use a computer. It's a tool. You have to teach them how to use it. And I understand their concerns that they're going to cheat on their essays and stuff like they have to write, but you have to embrace this. This is the next big wave of technology. This is like the invention of the wheel or the machinery or computers. This is where we're going with it. So I encourage everybody, if you don't know it, get in it, play with it, learn it. It's here. It's not going away.
Yeah. I think next month is officially my 10-year anniversary of being in legal marketing, and I still remember back in the day, like every email was written by somebody, usually somebody in the office, every sales letter, every headline, every bit of website content. You know, it almost feels like antiquated at this point because it's like, and I made this joke to you the other day. It's like I feel like an old person. Like I remember back in the day, we had to write our sales copy by hand. And I mean, it is kind
Right
of like
and
that.
added by hand, yes. So but the thing is too, you have to have some copywriting skills. You have to know what looks good. It's producing documents to you, but some of it's generic. So there's a skill that you still need to have to operate this stuff. Again, it's a tool. Make use of the tool.
I mean, it's incredible to me because I'm 2 years into it and I've used it for a ton of stuff. And you're right. Like, if you're having problems with intake, nothing is a huger time saver than like AI summaries. And like, even just using AI to like listen to a transcript and say, like, what type of case is this? You know, it can tell you if it's property damage, if it's an injury, if it's an inquiry about something crazy. You can tell that kind of instantly, and it saves you just so much time reviewing those calls.
What's
um,
amazing, you'll actually gauge like the empathy levels and the tone from it as well. It's like it's crazy the information you can extract from it.
yeah, and using that to get keywords is sometimes useful. Using that to get like frequently asked questions really useful. um, but yeah, I mean, it's just kind of incredible how this landscape has changed so quickly in such a short time.
Yeah, I mean, if people are not using it to buttress and increase their amount of marketing activity, they're really missing out,
Yeah.
because you can use it to generate so much, even just ideas and write them yourself. But it's an amazing tool for processing things a lot faster. I think it speeds up the process of problem solving because you can really vet things and get information a lot quicker. I mean, we're thinking about expanding into a different practice area, and I've used it for market research and and it's amazing the information it comes back out with, and then it'll actually give me all the intake questions to use for that type of case. I mean, I can build something out a lot faster now than what I could before. Especially with like even like I did a rewrite of a lot of our SOPs over the Christmas break. And if I had to sit there and actually manually type in all these SOPs for all these different things, it would have taken me forever. But it can come out with a framework of something that already looks probably 90% what I need and just tweaking it after that. So it makes the machine move a lot faster.
I mean, and you already mentioned this, and it's important, kind of like what the colleges are doing with the kids. Like, it's important to know how to write because this is a famous quote, and I'm about to butcher it, but like, if you know how to write, you know how to think, or something like that. And so it's important that you know like writing because ChatGPT, the copy is average, and you probably most people don't want average copy. But it produces something that is a lot easier to tweak than, just generating the whole thing by hand. And, I myself made like an agent that's essentially like somebody with a similar level of experience as me.
Yes.
I can't say it's a Tiffany bot or anything like that, but I programmed basically a coworker that I could bounce ideas off of and ask questions that, would give me, halfway decent feedback, pretty decent feedback in some cases. So it is truly a huge time saver. Yeah.
I mean, this morning I probably woke up at 3:30 in the morning like I usually do. I'll go back to sleep sometimes, but I had an idea. Rather than taking notes on it, I got in my Chat GPT app on my phone and started putting things in and generating ideas. And this morning I wake up and I'm able to finish those things. So I'm almost using it from a note-taking standpoint to feed ideas into. And the more you feed into it, the more it knows. Every once in a while, I'll run a little experiment with my Chat GPT and I'll ask it, "What do you know about my business?" And it's interesting to see over the last 2 years how much more sophisticated its answer has become. So when I'm doing problem solving, it's already taking into consideration a lot of those things it's already learned about me.
Yeah.
So at some point, it may already be, a better version of a manager than I am as far as decision making because it knows so much and it doesn't forget.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it would be a better manager than you because there are just some gaps that are hard to fill. But it is certainly a more analytical thinker,
Yes.
and it's definitely good at, I guess, like technical writing and processes and organizing thoughts. So yeah, super invaluable tool.
One other feature we have the intake where it's screening the calls and stuff like that, but I also have trying to train it to where we can ask it questions from our intake department, and it can answer them on real time. We haven't deployed this yet because I'm still testing it, but a couple of them I've run through it, and I've kind of like tested myself, like, okay, this is the answer I would give. Then I run it through ChatGPT for an answer. It's spotting issues and legal issues that I didn't spot. So it's like it's getting more advanced than I am as far as my knowledge now at this point, which I love because now I can maybe have something I can deploy to my intake people where they can have like a chat agent that sits with them on the call that can actually help them better answer questions to clients that are calling in.
Yeah.
So we'll see where that goes. It's kind of my laboratory. I'm always playing with it. It's a new toy for me. So yeah, but I love AI. I love Chat GPT. I don't see it going away in my practice anytime soon.
Oh no, certainly not. Well, so again, we haven't talked about this before, but like from a business standpoint, like, do you worry about like how ChatGPT might take like business from you, like for estate and probates? Are you feeling pretty secure with it?
So we do a lot of like handling administration of estates and litigated estates in that nature. We do a little bit of estate planning. It's not my main course of business. I've kind of shied away from that from a while because there's a lot of price pressure down with the various services that were already online. I think at some point the writing your will and trying to create a trust, I think there's gonna be a lot of pressure with AI generated type documents, which I would caution people, you don't know what you're getting and you don't know it's wrong until it's wrong and then it's too late kind of thing. So I think that part of the practice is going to continue to receive pressure from AI and tech type companies as far as document generation. But the other side of the practice, as far as the dealing with the administration of an estate, I don't see how AI is ever going to replace that or really affect that. I mean, we're kind of boots on the ground, getting real estate agents involved, getting houses cleaned out, getting things to market, getting it sold, dealing with fighting between heirs, whether handwriting is forged and things of that nature. I'm sure that AI will assist with those things in the future, but I don't see it eating any part of my market up for that.
Well, and I think if you just think about human behavior, and I think it's the classic like people connect with people, not brands, but we're talking about AI.
Mhm.
And me personally, there are so many situations where it's like I want to talk to like a person. I want to lock eyes with somebody and tell them what I'm going through and get that kind of human interaction more than what you could get with, ChatGPT and AI. And there's just so much more trust there, at least for me. And maybe at some point, like people will trust machines more than they trust people. Um, but at the moment, I'm not seeing that come up really big. There are a lot of interactions where you just prefer to deal with a human or
Yeah.
prefer to know that somebody is real working behind the scenes.
Especially with what I do. When I pick up the phone, no one's calling me with a happy problem. They've usually just lost a loved one that they're grieving, or they're in for a legal battle that's going to, splinter their family. So it's hard to rely on computer generated responses and suggestions in those situations. You need somebody you can trust who's going to take the wheel and kind of drive you where you need to go. So hopefully we can use AI to make our jobs more efficient, make it more cost effective for the clients, but you're always going to need that human element in what I do. At least I believe.
Yeah. And I think that's largely true. So one of the other questions I had for you is you've been in practice for a while and talked to a lot of attorneys and, kind of like me, you start to kind of see the patterns. From your perspective, like what are the things that you see happening to young lawyers that happened to you? Like, what problems are they experiencing that were the same as what you did? And like, what's different?
That's a really good question. And I've been practicing for like 20, we're 25 now, so like 22, 23 years now. And, one of the problems, I think it's just always been that way, is getting hands-on experience for new attorneys coming out in the courtroom, in depositions and things of that nature. More and more of our cases today go to resolve via settlement or mediation. So getting those actual lawyer skills of courtroom time, that was difficult when I was a young attorney, although I did get thrown to my first jury trial like 3 or 4 months after I got my license, but that wasn't common back then. There was very few opportunities to get courtroom experience. That's still the same now. Um, Kind of building on that, one of the bigger problems I'm seeing that's kind of a newer problem and ties into what we just talked about is the advent of AI. So, a lot of these new attorneys that are coming out of law school a lot of 1 year and 2 year associate attorneys, their main jobs are doing legal research, writing up memos on research, and summarizing documents and going through discovery and really kind of the grunt work of the legal industry. And what I'm seeing though, a lot of the AI tools that are coming out that are being offered to law firms is taking a lot of that grunt work away. It's being replaced with AI tools. Medical deposition summaries and things like that can be all done via AI. You can get first drafts of discovery now pretty well done through AI tools. So a lot of that experience that a new attorney would have in the first couple of years of their practice, there's less opportunity for that. So when you combine that with not a lot of opportunity for them to go to court and get the trial skills and not a lot of work for them to do on the grunt work because AI is taking it, it's going to be very challenging for new attorneys coming out of law school to have those jobs. They'll be far and few between and have a place to come out of the school and have a job to do. So I think it's going to be very difficult for new attorneys coming out with those two things kind of working against each other almost.
Yeah. And it's so funny to me because like when ChatGPT was really getting big, that was kind of my critique on it. I was like, well, all the things I learned as a marketer, writing these email newsletters, sending them, reviewing the data, that's experience that I use today.
The
And like
reps
how,
the reps you were getting to learn how to do your job you do now. So
yeah.
if you take those reps away, how do they get that practice?
I mean, it's an important question because I think it's giving marketers the experience that they need, giving young lawyers the experience they need. Because it took me like I felt like a couple of years before I actually got to make an ad, and those couple of years were frustrating but necessary. And actually doing my first ad was like a huge learning experience. So you have to get to that point.
Yes.
And
Even though
so
even though there's technology and automation that you can make use to do a job quicker, you still have to learn the fundamentals of how to do it. Example I gave one of my kids one time, they were learning some kind of math and like, Dad, why do we have to learn this now? There's calculators to do all this. It was like, yes, but you still need to know how to do all this, the base knowledge before we're going to give you the calculator to learn. So I think some of that's still going to have to be in play some kind of way in the legal profession. How do we give these younger attorneys coming out of school, those repetitions, that type of work so they can learn from it, even though we have a tool sitting on the shelf that could do it a lot more efficient and a lot quicker. So it's from a business standpoint, it's always going to be difficult. How do we trade off that training time compared to the efficiency and that bottom line type thing? So it's an interesting problem. We're kind of working through it now that AI is more prevalent and we have all these tools out there. But I think that's the biggest challenge for younger attorneys coming out right now is that how do they get those jobs and how many of those 1 to 5 year jobs are going to be available now with AI taking a lot of that work that they do.
yeah. It's kind of a sad problem, but I've heard somebody say like mentorships will probably become more of a thing where you're more working closely, like one on one with somebody in business to get the experience you need. I guess
Yeah.
good old fashioned internships. It's one of the things I certainly don't want to give up the tools that make my job easier and faster, and I don't have to send things through a proofreader and all that good stuff. I can just use ChatGPT. So it's a kind of a hard trade off to make.
Yeah. And the advantage these younger attorneys have coming out of law school is this generation grew up with technology in their pocket. They're going to be 100 times better on technology than I'm ever going to be. So, maybe that's where the focus needs to be in law schools and some of the skills types courses is teaching them how to use that technology and how to introduce it and better it. So they come in not doing that grunt work, but the ones that are controlling the tools to do the grunt work.
So, can you talk a little bit about the marketing that we're planning for the firm this year?
So one of the things, we've done really well is we've gone very wide with our marketing. We are LouisianaSuccessionAttorney.com. We've kind of spread a very wide net to catch clients all over Louisiana. And surprisingly, more than I think 3/4 of our clients come from outside of Louisiana. And we have clients from international clients. It's the common situation where you have people who grew up here, they may have moved away for college, have gotten married, but their parents, their family are still here, and somebody's passed away. What do they look for when they go looking for an attorney? They look for, Louisiana succession attorneys, what they're Googling. So we've been very lucky, I guess, that that's kind of how we branded ourselves from the beginning and going that way. But one of the things we're kind of pivoting now, we've done really well in that area is I read an article, I forgot where it was. It may have been something from GLM, but somebody made the point that, Kim Kardashian went to law school. She's probably not the best lawyer out there skill wise. I've never litigated with her, but just people are making assumptions. But the point of the article, the thing I read was that if Kim Kardashian was in her market, she would kick your ass because it's not necessarily the best best attorney who gets the work. It's the best known attorney that gets the work. So one of the initiatives I think we're really going to push forward this year is, we've gone wide with our marketing, but I want to go deep with it now. So in our local areas, our immediate cities where our offices are located, we want to become the best known attorney in our practice area for our immediate area and really kind of control that immediate market. And it's something that kind of, I think I overlooked that at the very beginning, kind of building the business. I wanted to go as big and wide as possible. So we're kind of now doubling back to do some of that stuff. So some of the things we're doing is, we're doing specific mail campaigns, going back to print type things, things that we're doing to referral sources in the mail and things of that nature. We're building out LinkedIn and we're trying to connect with people in the community to really build those local connections as best as possible to build those referral networks. I had a seminar last week I was at, and they were stressing how a lot of PPC type leads, a lot of times those are your lower value leads. And almost every attorney I've ever talked to, their best cases came from referrals. So, how do you build those referrals? The best way to do those is through local connections. So that's one of the big focuses we want to do is, like I said, go deep as opposed to wide with the marketing effort.
Yeah. I mean, there is no truer statement that PPC leads are subpar. And I don't think it matters what practice area. And I say subpar, a lot of them are still good cases you'd want to sign, but they're not like those big, like awesome cases that you always kind of hope for when a call comes in. And, going only into digital, doing only that type of marketing and not doing referrals is it's probably a huge mistake for a lot of law firms. But I think, a lot of lawyers feel like PPC and local service ads are systematic. They want to create like funnels that are just like on and run, and leads come through. And PPC is the way to do that, but like not if you're looking for a higher value cases. And if that's what you want, you do have to look for referrals. So that is such an important point.
Hey, look, anybody can write a check and pay Google money to run their ads. That's not a difficult thing to do. And unfortunately, attorneys are busy. We're running our businesses, we're practicing law and everything else. So a lot of times when it comes to marketing, unless you have a marketing team helping you, it's a lot easier to write a check to Google. The problem with that is, now you're Google's slave, basically. If Google changes the algorithm or something next month or next year, your entire funnel's built around that. That's a horrible way to build a business where you have one linchpin that can take you down. So, and you're friends with Charlie, man. Charlie always says the same thing. Marketing is always an and type thing. We do PPC and we do referral and we do this and we do that. It's an additive type thing. So you have to diversify how you're doing your marketing. If not, you're setting yourself up for potential failure.
Oh yeah. You need to be on all channels basically all the time. And that is so important as well. Like, attacking one channel, just doing only like SEO, it's such a recipe for disaster. And marketing is cumulative, it builds on itself. And so like everything that you're doing on all these channels, I mean, your original point is like we're going deep because we've been spread pretty thin. But I think just to clarify, he's talking about location. But when it comes to like where your brand is present, it should be as many places as it can be.
My favorite word is omnipresence.
Yeah, omnipresence is the good one.
I always love when I get a phone call and they say, "Hey, yeah, we searched for a probate attorney, and now every time we go back to the internet or our social media, your name keeps popping up. You must be really good at what you do because now you're everywhere." I'm like, "Yes, that's a win for marketing."
Well, and I'll brag a little bit because we've set up a retargeting campaign for you, and it just constantly generates book downloads and people coming back to the site and getting those. But it also kind of contributes to that omnipresence because they visit the site once and now they're going to see our ads on Facebook and Meta. You're also doing PPC ads and Google ads and local service ads, so you're going to show up there.
The commercials through David that's running. I mean, we become everywhere. I always tell people it's like when you go online and you shop for red shoes, and for the next month, every ad chasing you around is going to be red shoes. And I don't know if I told you, but I play a golf app game on my phone. It's just a game. I was like, when you're going down the course, and I always thought it was like just graphical banners of like stuff they've made up. I saw one of our ads on the banner on the side of the golf course that I was playing on the golf app. I don't know how that ties in, but that was freaking awesome.
Yeah, no, I think that's some of the marketing we're doing through Fox 8 and they're I think well, that's not OTC, but they're doing some sort of
I don't know if it's part of the
display
Google
ad
ad
like that. That's
platform or
cool. That's really
something, but
cool.
yeah, inside the game there was an ad, a banner like on the side, like all the sponsors and stuff. I'm like, wait, what was that? And like, I had to do a double take on it at first. It was like, whoa, that's really cool.
I really wish you would have got a screenshot of that. That kind
I
of throws
couldn't
me off.
back up because it's like
So
it was like a flyover. I couldn't get a screenshot of it, but like that's the idea is you just want to be everywhere. And you want to look at it. We try to do attribution as best as we can. For marketing, you always want to know how many leads did I get from this source, but at some point you want to look at your overall marketing. What did I spend? When I say marketing spend, it's not necessarily money on PPC. It's how much time did we put in for building lead magnets and resource. All that's marketing spend to me. And what are we putting in? How many leads are we getting? And as long as that number, that cost per lead is a good number you can live with and you're profitable, you keep adding the ands, keep adding the channels, even if you can't track them perfectly. Because, people will hear about you from a friend and go on Google and then call and intake says, how did you find us? Oh, we Googled you. Well, that could mean they found our LSA or our Google My Business page or organic. You don't know exactly where it's coming from. So before you cut anything off that you think's not working, be very careful. Look at it from more of a holistic standpoint, overall standpoint. How is it contributing to my omnipresent presence?
yeah.
Am I showing up everywhere I can possibly be when somebody needs me?
The adage is or used to be track everything, but it really should be track everything that you can because there's just so much that we don't know. Digital platforms sometimes can't communicate well to each other, and then we're always like the classic like somebody is referred by a friend, but then they Google us.
Yes.
And if they Google us and click on a local service ad and then say they've Googled us, we'll just have no way of knowing they were referred. And so like that's why I said marketing is cumulative because you do all of this stuff and you will see more leads, but you won't sometimes exactly see where the lead came from. And so like you said, you have to kind of do that total cost benefit analysis where you're looking at everything. Like what did we spend? How many cases did we get in? Did that work? Great. Because too many firms, and I think a lot of firms have learned their lesson and doubled back on this, but it felt like 7 years ago, it was like, don't do social media because nobody could track anything through social media. But I believe like social media was probably generating cases for them. It's just that
Figure the
attribution
attribution
gap.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, with digital marketing, really started with Google PPC way back in the day. And, I think we got spoiled or at least drawn into the fact that you could look up Google Analytics and stuff like that and say, oh, I spent X number of dollars. I got exactly this many leads. There's a lot of deception in that math, as far as what it really meant and we kind of expected the same kind of specific calculations in all our marketing. It doesn't work that way. And then, with most people, it may take 3 or 4 different impressions with them and seeing you or your brand or interacting with you before they become a client. So not one point or touch point contributed to that client. They all did. So you got to be careful when you start kind of trying to slice and dice your marketing, what's working and not working. Look at it. That'd be the best advice I give to people. Look at it from a holistic standpoint. Overall, what am I spending? What am I cost per lead? Obviously, try to track your attribution. You want to know if things are working, but don't put too much faith in those numbers as far as a live or die by those numbers.
Yeah. And you think about modern marketing too, which I love. I love thinking about it. Unfortunately, I'm not in that industry, but like if you're selling cosmetics or products and like you're using influencers, you might have 20 influencers talking about a lip gloss, and then somebody sees that, more than once on social media. And then when they're in Ulta.com, I know you can't relate to any of this.
Actually, I
They're,
can't.
they,
Three daughters in this haircut. I've been to Ulta way more times than I need to in Sephora.
oh yeah. Well, I don't like Sephora as much as Ulta, but I think it's just the vibe, honestly.
Yes.
Um, and but then you go on their website and you see that lip stain and you're like, I want that, but you may not remember why.
Exactly.
Or maybe you do remember, but you don't know how much that's influencing your purchase behavior. And so yeah, just the saturation of your brand, like is really, really important. And I think a lot of people shy away from that because it sounds expensive and it is expensive. But maybe not that expensive. And you do get something from it.
And looking at social media specifically, a lot of people put a lot of weight in how many likes did I get, how many impressions did I get, and things like that, how many comments. Just because you're not getting engagement, nobody's doing. There's so much dark activity on the web, but people are seeing it. They just may not be interacting with it, but it's still resonating in their head. You've gotten, they gotten their attention for a little while. So you have to keep doing it. You keep pushing it. You want to be in all channels you possibly can. At least that's the way we like to do things.
Oh yeah. And yeah, you're getting big on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn's interesting because if you, I think I have the pro account, and you can see how many people view your post, and then of course you can see how many reactions or comments. I've had posts that have gotten like quite a few impressions, but not much engagement, and that's because people are clicking on it and reading it, maybe learning something, maybe not, but depending on the nature of the comment, maybe they don't want to be seen liking it. Maybe they found it interesting and just moved on, just part of that dark social media activity. So yeah, I mean, I always shoot to get more engagement. I want that engagement because it does help. But, there's nothing wrong with putting out something on social media and like it kind of falling flat the first time. But if you do it consistently for like a couple months, then you start to see more followers and more engagement, and it just builds on itself.
I think all marketing and everything in life's like that. You can't just show up once or twice and do it. You got to do the small things every day consistently and just execute and just keep doing it because you're not going to see the results later on. There's always that you see that old picture of the guy digging for gold and he stops like right before the gold is. People give up too early. Whether it's a podcast or social media or LinkedIn, whatever platform, they start doing it. They don't see immediate results and then they move on to another shiny object. What you should be doing is keep doing it and then pick another shiny object to work on. And like you said, cumulative, keep adding. And the overall time, if you keep adding everything to it, you're going to have a marketing machine that works for you.
So, end of the podcast. What's something that we didn't talk about that you're hoping to talk about?
Well, one of the things I always talk about with people who are looking for advice, smaller firms who are trying to get to where we are, it's not rocket science. You just got to show up and do it every day. But I always express to them that you really got to think of your law firm business model as really three pillars. You have your marketing pillar, then your intake pillar, then your production pillar. And really what we're doing is the input on that first pillar, that marketing, you're spending marketing spend. That's either dollars on PPC or your time networking or your time developing lead magnets, but that's your input into your law firm business model. You put those things in and you generate leads. Those leads then get put to that second pillar of intake. Leads go in and you get clients out of it. And then clients come out of there, it goes to that third pillar production. Clients go in and then you get dollars of revenue out. But if you simplify that equation across those three pillars, what you're really talking about in business, law firm business model is you put marketing spend in and you get dollars of revenue in the back end. So that marketing spend or effort is really the mouth of that river there. And if you're not spending time there and developing your marketing and putting resources into there, that limits everything else behind that assembly line. So a lot of attorneys, the last thing they really, they're in their cases, they're working their cases, doing a great job with their cases, not sure why their firm's not growing. You have to spend money and resources in marketing to make the whole machine, to put fuel into the machine to make it go. So that's one of the things I wish people would start with marketing. That's the first problem you have. You're going to bump your head up against that wall, that ceiling of how do I get more leads? And the next great problem to have is how do I convert all those leads into clients? And you really then focus on your intake systems and processes and optimizing those things. And once you got more clients signed up, then you can worry about the problem of how you get the work out the door. So it's really it's a linear progression in those three pillars and getting those things to work and optimize those things. And you want to get to the point as a business owner where your job is to make sure all those things are humming. Um, the people and the processes that you put into each of those pillars, making those things work and optimizing those things.
Yeah.
But spend the money on marketing, put the effort into it. If you don't have a marketing director or somebody in-house is doing this stuff and worrying about this stuff every day, you need one. That's the only way your business is ever going to grow. And, we're very grateful for having you on our team and the things you've been able to do for us. That's been a game changer for us.
I appreciate that. I'll just tack on to what you're saying. Like, you need to do marketing, and if you've done it once and it didn't work, you just need to, pick yourself up and go back at it again, because there are a lot of marketing failures on the road to success, and you're going to have campaigns flop. You're going to waste some money sometimes. So if you've done it once and you didn't get good results, you just can't give up. You just got to keep at it to see the end.
It's like any other business. Almost every successful business out there has been built on great marketing. You got to start there.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Brad. I appreciate you coming on, joining me as a guest, and for also being a client and saying nice things.
I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
We'll wrap up for today, and be sure to tune in and join us for the next episode. Thanks so much.